He walked past every rich woman in town and stopped in front of the one nobody thought was worth noticing. When the whole town laughed at his choice, he quietly said just 3 words that left everyone speechless. 1 month. Your choice. But why did the most respected cowboy choose a poor black woman everyone ignored? Watch the full story to uncover the truth, and don't forget to subscribe to our page for more unforgettable Wild West stories. Before we start the story, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is right now? The morning sun hung high over the dusty streets of Dry Creek, a small town where everyone believed they already knew how the day would end. Women stood in a neat line outside the church. They wore beautiful dresses made of silk and lace. Their hair was carefully styled, their gloves spotless, and their smiles full of confidence. Everyone whispered the same thing. Wade Colton will choose Helen Doyle. Helen stood proudly beside her mother, Margaret Doyle, the richest and most respected woman in town. Margaret looked around with quiet confidence, already imagining the wedding that would bring even more honor to her family. Then the sound of slow footsteps echoed across the street. Wade Colton appeared, tall, calm, dressed in a dark coat and a black cowboy hat. He wasn't a man who spoke much, but every person in Dry Creek respected him. He had built the largest ranch in the county with nothing except hard work and honesty. The street fell silent as Wade walked toward the waiting women. Helen smiled softly. Margaret lifted her chin. Everyone expected Wade to stop, but he didn't. He walked past Helen. He walked past every woman in the line. The whispers turned into confused murmurs. What is he doing? Did he miss them? At the very end of the line stood someone nobody had noticed. Ivy Reed, a young black woman wearing a faded brown dress. The fabric had been washed so many times that its color had almost disappeared. Her hands were rough from work. Her shoes were old. She hadn't come expecting to be chosen. In fact, she wished nobody would even look at her. Wade stopped in front of her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The warm wind lifted the edge of Ivy's worn dress. She slowly looked up. Instead of pity, instead of judgment, she saw calm eyes looking directly at her. Then Wade gently placed one hand on her shoulder, not to claim her, not to control her, only to let her know that he truly saw her. The town exploded with laughter. "You've got to be joking. A poor black girl?" Margaret Doyle stepped forward, gripping her white lace parasol tightly. "Mr. Colton," she said sharply, "surely you've made a mistake." Wade never looked at her. He kept his eyes on Ivy. Finally, he spoke. 1 month. His voice was quiet but steady. "That's all I'm asking." Ivy frowned slightly. "What happens after 1 month?" "You choose," Wade answered. "You leave if you want. You stay if you want. No one will force you." The crowd became even quieter. No one had expected those words. Wade wasn't asking for a servant. He wasn't demanding a wife. He was offering a choice. Ivy looked around. Every face carried doubt. Some showed disgust. Others mocked her with silent smiles. She lowered her eyes toward the dusty ground. For most of her life, people had looked through her as if she didn't exist. But this man, he had walked past every beautiful woman in town just to stand in front of her. Slowly, Ivy picked up the small satchel resting beside her feet. Without another word, she followed Wade. Behind them, Dry Creek filled with whispers. Why her? No one understands him. Margaret's face burned with anger. Helen remained silent, but the disappointment in her eyes said everything. The road to Colton Ridge Ranch stretched across wide open fields. For almost an hour, neither Wade nor Ivy spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It simply felt unfamiliar. A wagon waited outside town. Wade climbed into the driver's seat. He didn't offer his hand. Instead, he waited patiently until Ivy climbed in by herself. That small act surprised her. He wasn't treating her like someone weak. He treated her like an equal. The wagon rode across golden hills. Cottonwood trees danced gently beside a small creek. The evening sun painted everything in warm orange light. After a long silence, Wade finally spoke. 30 days. Ivy looked at him. I won't ask anything from you. You'll have your own room. You can leave whenever you choose. She studied his face carefully. There was no hidden smile, no trick, no pride, only honesty. That confused her more than anything. By sunset, they reached Colton Ridge. The ranch was large but simple. Strong wooden fences surrounded green pastures. Horses grazed peacefully. Everything looked clean and well cared for. An old ranch hand, Ben Carter, walked out of the barn. He looked at Ivy, then at Wade. She's staying? He asked. For now, Wade replied. Ben simply nodded. No questions, no judgment. Moments later, Ruth, the woman who cared for the house, stepped outside carrying a wooden spoon. She smiled gently. Your room is ready. Inside the ranch house, everything was neat. There were no expensive decorations, only clean furniture, polished wooden floors, and the comforting smell of fresh bread. Ruth showed Ivy a small bedroom, a bed, a wash basin, a chair, a window overlooking the horse pasture. If you need anything, Ruth said kindly, just ask. After she left, Ivy sat quietly on the edge of the bed. For the first time in years, she didn't hear anyone shouting at her. No insults, no orders, only silence. That night she couldn't sleep. The wind gently touched the window. Hours later she heard soft footsteps outside her room. She held her breath. The footsteps stopped, then slowly walked away. Curious, Ivy opened the door. No one was there, but lying on the floor was a thick, warm blanket, freshly folded, still carrying the warmth of the hands that had placed it there. She looked down at it for a long time. No note, no explanation, no reward expected, just kindness. She carried the blanket inside, holding it close against her chest. She whispered something she hadn't said in years. Thank you. For the first time, Colton Ridge didn't feel like a place she had been taken to. It felt like a place where she had been welcomed. The next morning, Ivy woke before sunrise. She folded the blanket carefully and placed it on the bed. Downstairs, Wade was already making coffee. He glanced at her only once. "There's enough for both of us." That was all he said. No questions, no awkward conversation. Only quiet respect. For the next few days, Ivy slowly became part of the ranch. She helped Ruth in the kitchen. She fed the chickens. She swept the porch. No one treated her like a servant. Everyone simply worked together. Little by little, the heavy fear inside her began to fade. A week later, Wade hitched the wagon. "We're going into town." Ivy looked uncertain. "Dry Creek?" He nodded. She knew people would stare. Still, she climbed into the wagon. As soon as they entered town, conversations stopped. People turned to look. Some whispered. Others openly laughed. Inside the general store, Ivy quietly admired a roll of blue cotton fabric. She gently touched it before pulling her hand away. A woman beside her quickly stepped aside, making it clear she didn't want Ivy standing close. Ivy lowered her eyes. She had lived through moments like this all her life. But somehow, this one hurt more. After buying supplies, Wade walked toward the church. The large wooden doors stood open. Inside, Margaret Doyle was already waiting. The moment she saw Ivy, her lips tightened. "So," she said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "Some people forget their place very quickly." A few people laughed. Others looked away, too uncomfortable to join in. Margaret stepped closer. "Dry Creek has standards. We don't welcome confusion into respectable families." Every word struck Ivy's heart. She wanted to disappear. She turned slightly, ready to leave. Then Wade spoke. Only 2 words. "She stays." His voice was calm, firm, certain. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He simply stood beside Ivy. The church became silent. Margaret realized no insult could move him. She looked away with quiet anger. That night, Ivy sat alone in her room. She couldn't stop hearing the laughter, the whispers, the cruel eyes following her everywhere. Maybe she truly didn't belong. Slowly, she packed her few belongings. A comb, a small pouch of coins, an extra dress. She quietly walked outside while everyone slept. The moon lit the empty road. Behind her, the ranch stood peaceful. She didn't look back. Inside the house, Wade found only one thing on the table: the blanket. Beside it lay a folded note. He quietly placed another note where she would see it if she returned. "You were never asked to stay." Nothing more. He didn't chase her, because he believed every person deserved the freedom to choose. By sunrise, Ivy had walked several miles. She reached a fork in the road. One path led back to Dry Creek. The other disappeared into endless open land. She stood there, unsure. Then she smelled smoke. She turned. Far away, a thick black cloud rose into the morning sky. Her heart froze. Colton Ridge. Without another thought, she ran. When Ivy reached the ranch, flames covered the barn. Smoke filled the air. Terrified horses kicked against their stalls. Several townspeople stood outside watching. Buckets sat beside the well, but almost no one moved. Wade wrapped his coat around one arm and disappeared into the burning barn. Moments later, he came out leading one frightened horse. Its body shook with fear. Without resting, Wade ran back inside again. Ivy grabbed a bucket. She lowered it into the well. The rough rope burned her hands as she pulled. She threw water onto the burning wall. Again and again. Finally, she shouted, "Help him!" Her voice broke the silence. Old Ben picked up another bucket. Then another man joined him. Soon people formed a line. Water passed from one pair of hands to another. Together, they slowly pushed the fire back. At last, Wade stumbled out carrying the final horse. His sleeve had burned. His arm was badly injured. His face was covered with smoke. He leaned against a fence, breathing hard. Ivy hurried to him. Without asking permission, she gently held his burned arm. "You came back," Wade said quietly. Tears filled Ivy's eyes. "You let me leave." For the first time, a small smile appeared on Wade's face. Not because the barn had survived, but because she had returned. Inside the house, Ivy cleaned his burn with cool water. Her hands trembled. She carefully wrapped fresh cloth around his arm. Old Ben watched silently before speaking. "You know why he chose you?" Ivy looked up. Ben smiled. "Months ago, I saw you teaching poor children behind the old shed. You took no money. You simply wanted them to read. He saw that. He never cared about pretty dresses. He cared about a good heart." Ivy couldn't speak. All this time, she had believed Wade chose her out of pity. Now she understood. He had seen something valuable that everyone else ignored. The next morning, wagons arrived from Dry Creek. Men carried lumber, others brought nails, some brought rope. No speeches were made. No one apologized. They simply started rebuilding the barn, one board at a time, one hammer strike at a time. The fire had changed something inside the town. People who once stood and watched now worked together. Ivy picked up a loose board and held it steady while another man nailed it into place. No one stepped away from her. No one laughed. For the first time, she felt accepted. Late that afternoon, Margaret Doyle arrived. She looked at the half-finished barn, then at Ivy. "So, are you staying?" The yard became silent. Everyone waited. Wade didn't answer. He never tried to make the choice for her. Ivy looked around, at Ruth, at Ben, at the people rebuilding the ranch. Finally, she stepped forward. "I'm staying." Her voice was soft, but every person heard it. Margaret's face hardened. Without another word, she turned and walked away. No one followed her. Days became weeks. The barn was rebuilt. Life slowly returned to normal. But something had changed forever. Each afternoon, children gathered on the ranch porch. Poor children. Children who had never owned books. Ivy taught them letters, numbers, stories. She smiled as they proudly read their first words. Nearby, Wade quietly repaired saddles or fixed fences. Sometimes he looked toward the porch, listening to the sound of children, listening to Ivy's patient voice. He never interrupted. He simply smiled. One evening, after the children had gone home, Ivy stepped onto the porch. The golden sunset covered the fields. She stood beside Wade. Neither of them spoke. The wind gently moved through the tall grass. Finally, Ivy looked toward him. "You never tried to change me." Wade smiled softly. "I never wanted to." She looked across the peaceful land, then back at him. For the first time in many years, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow, because she had found something far more valuable than a home. She had found someone who saw her worth long before she could see it herself. And Wade had found something he had never been searching for. Not beauty, not wealth, not status, but a woman whose kindness was stronger than the world's cruelty. Sometimes love doesn't begin with grand promises. Sometimes it begins with one quiet decision: to stay. And from that simple choice, two lonely hearts built a life stronger than fear, stronger than judgment, and stronger than every whisper that once tried to keep them apart. Thank you so much for watching this story all the way till the end. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. It really helps us a lot. If you want to watch more exciting stories like this, don't forget to subscribe our page right now. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is right now? And if this story touched your heart, please send some stars. Every single star gives us huge motivation to keep creating more amazing videos for you. See you in the next story. Take care of you, friends.